Hello everybody, it's Brian here. I should say maybe surprise, I'm making a video. If you watch my last very short video, you'll know that our house is in disarray because of a renovation, and I wasn't sure how easy it would be for me to make videos, but our house has a second entrance through the basement at the back of the house, so I snuck in there and went to a place where I knew I had put some recent acquisitions. So I dug those out and brought them back to this house, which is where we're staying for a while, and then we'll have to move. I didn't want to go in the front door because there's you could hear the hammering and sawing and whatever. There's several people in our house ripping it apart with sledgehammers. So went into the basement, grabbed the stuff, left, came back here on the third floor with these lovely but blinding skylights, which I had to close a little bit. So I have seven, I think I have about 7 things here to talk about that I guess qualify as recent finds. So let's talk about this one first from the band Sugar, which is one of my all-time favorite bands, with Bob Mould, formerly of Husker Du or Husker Du, depending on how you say it. And this was his really excellent trio that just blew my mind when I heard it the first time. So this is B-Sides, which, as you might guess, is a collection of other stuff. So the hype sticker, which I just took off now, I just took the shrink wrap off here, says 1995 compilation of B-sides, alternative mixes, and live versions pressed on 2 heavyweight 180 gram clear vinyl. There's the back. I haven't even opened it. I haven't even seen this myself because I just took the shrink wrap off. Ah, there we go. And as it mentions, 2 records in here. There's one and pretty nice looking clear vinyl. The other would be the same, judging by the hype sticker. And maybe I don't need to pull it out, but let me just take it out of this, slightly different color scheme there. Now, I of course have this on compact disc already, so why am I duplicating my collection again? Well, I'll tell you in a second. So this has a really great collection of stuff. Some, as it mentions, B-sides, some alternative mixes, like If I Can't Change Your Mind, the solo mix. We got the Campfire mix, I Believe What You're Saying. The last 4 tracks are BBC radio sessions. Those are If I Can't Change Your Mind, Hoover Dam, The Slim, Where Diamonds Are Halos, and then a bunch of other stuff throughout here, like JC Auto, fantastic song. And it has Armenia, City in the Sky, the cover of the Who track, which I think is phenomenal. I love the Who track, and the cover is fantastic, if you ask me. So really great. Really, really happy to have that in my collection, although I have it on. I have it on CD. Now the second one I got is, again, Sugar. So this completes my Sugar vinyl collection. I mean, there are some 12-inch singles I don't have. I do have some, but I'm not going to fret about those. But in terms of vinyl, they didn't do that many records. There's two records plus an EP, and then that collection and this live record. That's really all there is. So this is... The joke is always on us sometimes. Live at First Avenue, Minneapolis, November 2nd, 1994. Now I mentioned I had the CD for B-sides. The first 25,000 copies of that CD were bundled with this recording as well. So I have them both on one compact disc, but when I saw the vinyl I had to get. Now I should say, how did I know about this? Or how did I get this? I got a deal, is what I'm trying to say. There's a guy I follow on Facebook, I think it's called Canada Vinyl Deals. So he's this dude, his name's Dave, he posts deals that he finds. Normally they're on Amazon.ca, occasionally on Amazon.com, and every once in a while he'll post something that he finds on eBay. So these 2 things were listed on eBay. They came from overseas. I think it's also a company that sometimes sells through Amazon. And they were listed at $19 and some cents with free shipping from Europe. So each of these records was about, let's round it up to $20. It was about $20. And I was like, wow, I have to get that, because that is like a stellar deal. This is the back of this one. Lyrics. Love that image, by the way, Bob, there. And these are also on clear vinyl. These were both repressed, I think, in 2013, and these are the 2020 reissues of both of these Sugar recordings. So I am delighted to have these. In terms of Bob Mould, Husker Du, Sugar, I have pretty much everything that was officially released. There's one odd Bob Mould record called Modulate, which was included in a box, in a vinyl box, but it's never been, as far as I know, released separately on vinyl. I have the compact disc, of course, but So those are fantastic. I'm really happy to have those. Next, we go to 1988, I think. And this is some... Oh, I should have shown you the... well, there's the hype sticker for The Joke. The Joke is always on us sometimes. Live at First Avenue, Minneapolis. Yeah. Pretty cool. Now, this record, some of you may be surprised to learn I didn't have this until recently. And that is The Mission, their second record called Children from 1988. Now, I don't know why I didn't have this record. I have other Mission recordings. This one, for some reason... Let's get that punch out there. I don't know. I never had it. I'm familiar with it, of course. It has that epic Tower of Strength on here, which is probably the Mission's marquee track. They're a goth band from Leeds. The lyrics, and then the dudes in the band. It was on Vertigo. Yes. Here we go. Fabulous. Beautiful shape on this. I mean, it looks well, I don't know if it's unplayed, but it looks beautiful. There's not even a single hairline scratch anywhere. It's just fantastic. So I had to grab that. An obvious hole in my collection, so great Mission recording there. Next, now, the next band is a band I'm sort of sometimes like and sometimes don't like. I think they started off strong and then kind of lost their way, at least for me anyway, and that is the band Queen. However, I was in a store and I saw Queen 2, which I'm sort of familiar with. I didn't know all the tracks on here. I think the Seven Seas of Rye was probably the one I knew the best. And I'm of the opinion that the first 3 Queen records are better than the later ones. Now, there are 3 Queen tracks that I absolutely detest. I don't like We Will Rock You, We Are the Champions. I just find them really infantile, those two tracks. And it kind of ruins News of the World for me. And the other track that I really don't like, and maybe James Griffiths will eventually convince me that I'm wrong on this, because he's a proponent of Bohemian Rhapsody, but I've never liked that song. I just don't really understand it. But I'm willing to learn, so anyway. But the early Queen stuff, I think, is better. Now, this record does need a bit of glue. The jacket is splitting, which I can fix, of course. Normally, when I see early Queen records, even ones I have, they're really expensive or in terrible shape. So that is strange. But this one, apart from that, it does have a bit of wear to it, but the vinyl was in pretty good shape. There's the insert with the lyrics. And the record here on that classic Queen label. And it is beautiful. I mean, it's in pretty solid shape. So for the price and the condition, I thought this was a really excellent buy. So I decided to grab that one. It wasn't a big outlay financially. So the only Queen record I'm missing, I don't have the first one on vinyl. And then I lost interest. By the time we got to, The Game for me is actually a pretty good record. And then, is it the Flash Gordon soundtrack that's next? I mentioned, or The Miracle, I got those free. Video ages ago, if you go back, I got free copies of those. And then I really lost interest. By the time we got to Hot Space, I don't know what's going on with that band. So, a couple records from Canada coming up. And the first is this band, which were known as Martha and the Muffins here. They've switched to M+M. I think because of some personnel changes. The World is a Ball from 1986. They're a Canadian synth pop, new wave, maybe art pop band. Lost track of how many records they put out. This is the last one for a few years. So in 1986 they did this, and then they came back in 1992 with one which I've never heard, and there was one around 2010 which I have never heard. This is the back of it. Now they have one really huge international hit. Well, I think it was huge. It was Echo Beach. So that was quite popular. But they had other tracks that were really popular here. For example, Dance Park, Women Around the World Who Work. There's some more. So kind of a pleasing, pop-ish kind of band that I don't mind at all. So I have everything now that they've released except for the 2 albums where they reformed. And there's one record of theirs I just think is brilliant. This is The Ice Age. I think is a fantastic record. So let's look at the inside here. Now, the other thing that's interesting about this band is there are 3 of the records, I think their second, third, and fourth records, so I think this might be 5, were produced by Daniel Lanois, and in fact he participated in the music aspect by playing some instruments because his sister was the bassist for this band. Not the original bassist, but the second bassist, I think, with their second record. Kind of a fun Canadian band, more popular here than perhaps anywhere else, but they got a lot of radio play. And I think they still get radio play. But I haven't heard their last two records, and I don't know if I'm even interested. But this is one I knew I didn't have, and it turned out to be hard to find for some reason, but I've got it now, so that's cool. Now, another Canadian band called Chalk Circle. Now, you may know there's an American punk band called Chalk Circle. This is a Canadian alternative music group called Chalk Circle. I think they did, now I'm going to lose track, 3 records maybe? This is from 1987 called, 1989, As the Crow Flies. Still has a shrink on it because, believe it or not, until 10, 11 minutes ago, it was still sealed. I just unsealed it but haven't looked inside yet. And normally I don't buy sealed used records. It seems a bit risky if they've been sitting around for that long, but they had a couple of really big hits in Canada. One was April Fool, Me, Myself, and I, This Morning. On this, I think the big track on here was, what is it? Well, Blue Heaven was a single, and then Sons and Daughters, yeah, that was the other one. There's also a track on here called, Blue Heaven features vocals by Jane Siberry, the weird Canadian singer Jane Siberry. Did I get the second? I might have got the second single wrong. I think it was. Did I make a note of that? Together, I think was the second single. Anyway, Sons and Daughters would be the one to check out if you're curious, or the earlier stuff. They're from Newcastle, Ontario. Possibly the only band out of Newcastle, Ontario. I've never been to Newcastle, but I've driven past it many times on my way to places like Ottawa, Montreal, Quebec City. So they're Duke Street Records, fabulous Canadian record label, Duke Street Records. So, very cool Canadian band. I saw them in concert once, I'm not going to remember when. Produced by Michael Philip Wojowoda, who is a Canadian musician and drummer and producer. He worked with bands like, well, he was a member of the Rheostatics for a while. He produced bands like, I think Bare Naked Ladies, something like that. I should have looked it up, but very cool. And the last one is something I've been eager to get for quite a while, but the price was always a bit strange to me. Now, my argument for the best Canadian synth pop band of all time is a band called Rational Youth, and their album Cold War Nightlife came out in 1982, and I have an original copy of that, but this deluxe edition came out a while ago of Cold War Nightlife. When did it come out? 2019. And I was following that on Amazon, but the price was always around $80, and I thought, I'm not going to pay $80 for that album. By the way, I saw these guys, not in 82, but I think in 84, I saw these guys play a live show. So I've been following that on Amazon. Let me just tell you what the hype sticker says. Deluxe expanded edition of the iconic debut album. 2 LP clear vinyl set includes singles, remixes, extensive liner notes, lyrics, testimonials, and rare photos from the band's personal archive. And because they're Quebec band, they did it in French as well. So you can see that I mentioned it's around $80 on Amazon Canada. Here it's $57.96, but look at this 50% off marker. So I got it for half of $58. So I was like, wow, I'm buying this. I'm going to take the shrink wrap off now because I haven't taken it off yet. So we can look at the inside. It has a bit of shelfware because it was sitting in a clearance bin at this horrible chain called Sunrise Records. They also operate FYE. I don't like either of them, especially in Canada. The prices, their prices are stupid. Let's be honest, they're just stupid prices. So there we have the cool inside with liner notes. We've got production notes, quite a lot of production notes, big essay, some images. We have this, which has some really nice memorabilia for like concerts they played. Here's one they did with Moev, Dance for Disarmament, Moev and Rational Youth. Here's one they did a concert with OMD, Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark, in Montreal. Another one, it was the Electrobeat Cabaret with Rational Youth, Champagne, and Action Men on Assignment. There's a lot of things here which are really cool. Anyway, great album. I honestly believe this is possibly the greatest synth pop band, but also album. This first album for them, I think it's phenomenal. The big hit on here was Saturdays in Silesia. That got a lot of radio play, but there's also some really more interesting things that are less radio friendly, let's put it that way. Here we have the other sleeve. We have yeah, this is really cool. Some old images. Now the band is still going on, but it's really only one of these guys and his wife. So the band doesn't really exist as it did, but I thought they were fantastic. Is there anything else in here? Is that it? Great. So normally I don't really buy deluxe issues of things that I already have because sometimes I find that the additional things aren't worth having. But in this case, we have some tracks, I guess, that were excluded from the original album. Power Zone, Cobaloid Race, City Phosphor. And then we have the extended mix of Saturdays and Silesia, which I think is fantastic. And City of Night, the dance mix of that. Great. And I Want to See the Light. So I was delighted to find this. Even the original price, $57.98. I might have even have paid that for this, but having it 50% off, it's like, that's a bonus. So that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.